You weren't just manipulated. You were trained, slowly, repeatedly, until you started destroying yourself for them. And the worst part? You didn't even notice when it began. There's a reason you stayed longer than you should have. A reason you kept doubting yourself, even when something felt wrong. A reason you still think about them, even now. And no, it's not love. Let me ask you something. Be honest. Did they feel perfect at the beginning? Did things only start to feel confusing later? And even now, do you still question if you were the problem? Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you isn't just manipulation. It's a system. They didn't choose you randomly. That's the first illusion. They studied you, not in an obvious way, but in small, calculated observations. The way you talk about your past, the things you wish someone understood, the emotional gaps you don't show everyone, and then they became the answer to all of it. They didn't just like you, they mirrored you. Think about it. Same interests, same values, same emotional depth. It felt rare, almost unreal. But here's the disturbing truth. They weren't connecting with you, they were mapping you. Question: have you ever met someone who felt too perfect? Too quickly? That wasn't chemistry. That was precision. At the beginning, you felt seen in a way you never had before. Not just liked, understood. They gave you constant attention, deep conversations, emotional intensity. And it didn't feel fake. That's why it worked. Because they didn't overwhelm you randomly. They gave you exactly what you were missing. Let me ask you something deeper. Did they say things like, "I've never met anyone like you"? Did they make you feel chosen, almost special? That wasn't affection. That was positioning. Because once you're emotionally invested, they don't need to chase you anymore. Now you start chasing them. This is where most people miss it, because nothing explodes. It shifts. A slower reply, a colder tone, a subtle withdrawal, and when you notice, they minimize it. You're overthinking. You're too sensitive. It's not that deep. So now, instead of trusting your instincts, you start correcting yourself. Pay attention to this moment. When did you first feel confused? When did you first apologize without knowing why? That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was conditioning starting. And this is where it gets dangerous, because from this point on, every reaction you have is being used to train you. They don't control you directly. That would be obvious. Instead, they reward and punish behavior. When you act the way they like, you get warmth, attention, affection. When you don't, you get distance, silence, coldness. So your brain adapts. Without you realizing, you start thinking, maybe I should say it differently. Maybe I shouldn't bring this up. Maybe it's my fault. Let me ask you something honestly. When did you start filtering yourself around them? When did being yourself start feeling risky? That's not love. That's behavioral conditioning. If you're still watching this, you're not here by accident. Something in this is familiar. Something in this feels personal. Subscribe. Because the next part is where most people completely lose themselves and don't even realize it. This is where they break you, not loudly, not violently, but slowly and permanently. They don't take your identity. They make you replace it. You speak differently, you think differently, you act differently. Not because you want to, but because it keeps the peace. And here's the most disturbing part. You start calling it growth. Think about that. How much of what you changed was actually for them? When did you stop recognizing yourself? This is where people get trapped, because now you're no longer fighting them. You're fighting to keep the version of them you first met, just when you feel empty. They come back, not fully, just enough. A compliment, a memory, a moment of warmth. And suddenly, you feel hope again. This is the trap, because now your brain connects pain with reward. Ask yourself, are you holding on to who they used to be? Are you staying because of potential? That's not love. That's addiction engineered through inconsistency. And the more you chase that old version of them, the more control they gain over you. At this stage, you don't need them to control you anymore, because you do it yourself. You overanalyze everything. Walk on eggshells, seek their approval constantly. And here's the truth most people can't accept. They didn't trap you. They trained you to stay. Be honest. When did your confidence turn into anxiety? When did love start feeling like pressure? That shift? That's the moment you lost control. Then one day, something clicks. You feel it. Quietly. This isn't right. But instead of leaving, you hesitate, because now you're attached, not to them, but to the emotional cycle. Question: have you ever known something was wrong, but stayed anyway? That's not weakness. That's the system working exactly as intended. There's something even deeper happening, something most people never notice. At some point in the relationship, an invisible contract is created, not spoken, not agreed on consciously, but enforced. The contract sounds like this: I will keep trying, as long as you give me just enough to stay. And without realizing it, you signed it. Think carefully. When did you stop expecting consistency? When did bare minimum start feeling like effort? That's when the contract locked in, because now they don't have to love you properly, or they just have to give you just enough hope. And once you accept inconsistency, you become controllable. You don't miss them. That's the illusion. You miss the beginning, the intensity, the version of you that existed back then. Because before them, you were certain, clear, stable. After them, confused, doubtful, dependent. So ask yourself, do you actually want them back? Or do you want to feel like yourself again? That difference changes everything. This is the most dangerous phase, because now you start rewriting reality. You think, maybe I pushed them away. Maybe I was too emotional. Maybe I expected too much. And just like that, they're no longer the problem. You are. Be honest. How many times did you excuse behavior you would never tolerate before? That's not growth. That's psychological distortion. The more you blame yourself, the less you question them. Here's where they fully win. Not when you stay, not when you love them, but when you stop trusting yourself. Because once that happens, they don't need to manipulate you anymore. Your own mind does it for them. Think about this. When was the last time you trusted your own feelings without second guessing? If you hesitated, that's the damage. If this feels uncomfortable to hear, it's probably because part of you already knows it's true. Here's the truth most people avoid. You didn't just lose them. You lost your sense of reality, and rebuilding that takes more than just walking away. It takes awareness. Because if you don't understand what happened, you won't just repeat the relationship, you'll repeat the pattern. And the next person won't look like them, but the feeling will be exactly the same. So this honestly, did they change? Or did you just start seeing clearly? Were they ever who you thought they were? Or just who you needed them to be? You weren't weak. You were studied. And then slowly, rewritten. And if you're starting to see the pattern now, go back to the beginning of this video because the signs were always there. You just didn't know what you were looking at. Read this carefully. At what exact moment did you start feeling like yourself was fading? Was it early? Or when it was already too late?